my impossible idea, if you will, would be to look at the border in another way, not as an object to be defended, a barrier to build, but rather as a point of connection, trying to think about other ways of approaching borders, approaching international mobility, which will keep on happening regardless of what fences we put in people's paths. So we often see this very one-dimensional framing of migration in our politics and in the actual response at the border. So just to give you one example of that, the EU border agency Frontex, founded in 2004, treats migration as a risk. And what does that mean? It says the definition is risk is a function of threat, vulnerability and impact. What's vulnerable here is not the migrants and the refugees, it's the border, it's our territory. And the migrants are construed as a kind of threat to our borders. It's a very simplistic way of thinking about migration, removing the historical, political, social dimensions of migration, the psychological dimensions. In an ethnographic approach, it's very much about focusing from the ground up on how people themselves experience their situations, how migrants find ways of navigating seemingly closed borders, and also how the border guards themselves are often very ambivalent about their task. So I would hear from a border guard chief in Madrid, sitting in his new fancy control rooms with all his surveillance screens at arm's reach, saying that migration is something that will never stop. I would hear from police attachés stationed in West Africa from Europe in order to halt routes at source, if you will, saying that, well, we need to leave an escape route, otherwise you'll get a pressure cooker effect. And he told me that back in 2010. We're seeing now what the borders are like, a certain amount of prophesying going on there. I heard from border guards, Spanish enclaves in North Africa, Ceuta and Melilla, showing off this very advanced triple or double fencing to halt migrants built with EU money, saying that, well, this fence is useless. It's never going to stop anyone who's suffering in Morocco, who's put everything at stake in arriving into Europe. We're just going to slow them down a bit. You keep hearing this type of criticism from the very officials and guards in charge of our policies. And certainly through an ethnographic approach, we can reach a better understanding of what's going on out there, rather than this very simple political rhetoric we often are left with in our media and our public debate.